Welcome to the Automotive Diagnostic Podcast. We're going to explore ways to sharpen our diagnostic skills, find learning resources, and hear from experts in the automotive field. This episode is brought to you by L1 Automotive Training and Keith Perkins. If you're looking for education on module programming, J2534, EEPROM work, key and immobilizer, electrical diagnostics, or drivability diagnostics, Keith has a website, l1training.com, that's got over 60 hours of training videos on all those subjects and more. When I first started out doing mobile, I utilized Keith's videos on module programming in J2534 in order to get my head wrapped around what I would need for the tooling, the computers, the software setups, what kind of obstacles I would be up against when I'm out there programming modules on cars. And it was a huge benefit to me. And I continue to use the training videos that he has on his website. So I strongly recommend checking out l1training.com. The link is in the show notes. Hey, what's going on, automotive world? Welcome to another episode of the Automotive Diagnostic Podcast. My name is Sean Tipping. I'll be your host once again for this week's episode. Thank you so much for joining me. I got a little case study for you here today. This was an interesting one on a couple different aspects that we dealt with recently. This was on a 2018 BMW 640i, real low mileage, fancy sports car BMW, and it came to one of our customers, a repair shop, as a no crank situation. They did what they couldn't really get a whole lot of direction, ended up replacing the starter, and that didn't change anything. It was still a no crank situation. They did find after that, probably better to find beforehand, but they found after that if they manually applied power to the S terminal of the starter, that they could get it to crank, but it wasn't running even at that point. And of course, hitting the button in the car, couldn't get it to crank. It did key up. They had a key that seemed to work, but nothing would happen when you would hit the brake and press the start button. So anyways, they called us in, diagnosed it, and one of my technicians went the first time and checked it out. And he spent some time on it, but didn't really get any strong direction outside of everything appears to be working or in place for the vehicle to crank and to start. And he did verify that if you jump power to the starter, it actually does crank, turns over the engine, but it didn't start. But we had no codes to really go with, nothing that seemed to have anything to do with preventing the vehicle from starting. Of course, we're checking things on modern vehicles. You got to check to make sure the brake switch is working the way it's supposed to. And of course, scanning codes and looking at modules involved with actually operating the starter, turning the ignition on, and then getting the engine running. Main players on this one, of course, you're looking at the push button switch, which seems to be completely operational. You're looking at engine control module. However, the engine control module is not in direct control of operating the starter, but it's going to play a role, of course, and especially with the engine starting. Transmission and the actual transmission range as read by the vehicle, that's also going to be an important input to make sure that it's in park or neutral, and it knows that it's in park or neutral. If not, of course, it's not going to let it crank. And our body domain controller, which is the anti-theft module. It's also the body control module. It runs a lot of electrical functions on the vehicle, but it also has immobilizer data. It has key data, and it is going to directly send power to the starter. So that's straight to the starter. There's no relay in line. It is a black wire that it does change color halfway, but it directly applies power to the starter solenoid. I should be more clear about that. Obviously, there's a big cable coming from the battery, but the actual solenoid that activates the starter has a wire that goes straight shot to the BDC, and it controls it. So, of course, we want to be looking at that module because that's our main point of contact to the starter itself. And really what we're looking for is it trying. That's kind of the goal we want to determine before we really jump into anything, since again, we don't have any clues as far as codes go, but let's look at some data PIDs and see maybe what it's trying or not trying to do. And then we can decide off of that. And what I mean by that is, like, if I have a module that is in control of operating anything really, but in this case, a starter, and I go into the data PIDs and I see that it is attempting to operate the starter based off of the data PIDs, right? The commanded position or the desired position. Usually it'll say, starter relay command. And this is not BMW. This is just generally speaking when I'm looking at something and I'm like, is it even attempting? And so if that starter relay command, again, going away from BMW just in general, says no or off, I'm going a different direction than if it says yes or on. Okay. And so I want to know, is that module even trying to crank the starter? And then if it is, I'm going straight for that output circuit and seeing, okay, is there an open? Is there a connector issue? Something like that. Or if it says no, I want to look back at the inputs and see what's going on there. So anyways, my tech's out there takes a look at it. We did not get a whole lot of great direction with this thing, and we realized that we were probably going to be getting into quite a bit of testing, which we do often. That's the thing we do all the time. Of course, we do mobile diagnostics. We take on challenging problems, and we're going to spend time on some of these cars. This did seem like a strange one. Just it really wasn't a whole lot adding up, and at the particular shop where this BMW was, we didn't want to spend a whole lot of time on it there because most of the stuff there is going to be outside in a less than optimal area down in the cities. Real great guy that runs the shop. We actually enjoy working with him quite a bit, and he's a very good customer of ours. But the particular area where this is and where the car was outside, I just didn't want to dive into it a whole bunch. And I had a feeling that this one was going to take some work and tearing stuff apart to get into this. I walked through everything on the phone with my tech and I'm like, you know what? This just seems like a candidate, like, see if he'll get this towed up to our shop. And this guy's pretty good. We'll go out there for plenty of stuff. But if it's something where like, we need this at the shop, he's cool about it. He'll get it there, whether it be driving or towing. Obviously, this one's towing to our shop. And it's more of a controlled environment at our shop. And it is nice to have a physical location for those particular vehicles. I've got an Audi at the shop, which that will probably be a podcast episode at some point. I'm not done with it, but I've had that car for 2 weeks now and working on it on and off, trying to get to the solution for that one. I just realistically wouldn't be able to do that if that car's out in the field. Like, I can't take 5-6 trips. I should say I've done that before and it eats up so much time. But if I have it at the shop, I can squeeze it in, maybe a little bit at the start of the day. Maybe I'm slow. Maybe I'm there just after a meeting, and I can do things to the car periodically when it works. And I have another technician that's primarily stationed at the shop, and so I can have him do things throughout the day to, hey, can you check this for me, run this test, let me know what you come back with. And it's pretty effective method. So, right, I've worked in a shop. You guys have worked in brick and mortar shops. There's definite advantages to it. Now, anyways, get it towed to the shop and then we'll start fresh. We'll take a look. And I looked at it at this point and I kind of verified everything that my tech did. Same thing. No codes really point anywhere. And kind of the same mindset of like, okay, what's the BDC, trying to do or not trying to do? And I get into it, and from what I can tell, all the inputs are there, right? It's happy with the key. It's not upset. There's no immobilizer information that seems out of place. Obviously, it's keying up. Brake pedal position, that's working. Park neutral position, that's working. Nothing obvious that seems to be restricting it from cranking the engine. And so go into the various terminals in the data PIDs for the body domain controller. Now, this is where, when I was saying earlier, like starter relay command, that's not BMW. It's not. You're going to see something called terminal 50. That's the starter command for most European cars, but definitely BMW. And this episode is brought to you by autorescuetools.com and Isaac Rodell. If you are looking to get into module programming, but you are not sure what kind of laptop you're going to need or how to set it up for programming, Isaac is your guy. He can set up laptops specifically to do control module programming for specific brands with partitioned hard drives and all the software that you're going to need to do this. He also sells key cutting equipment, scan tools, and other diagnostic equipment. I bought some stuff from him in the past, and the support is phenomenal. So I highly recommend checking out the website. Again, that's autorescuetools.com. The link will be in the show notes. And so you want to see terminal 50 switch to on or yes when you hit the brake and you hit that start button. And this one did not. It was not switching status. Now, all the rest of the terminals would respond based off of the position of the key. But I did see something else in the data PIDs that seemed odd. And I'll tell you where else I've seen things like this before. But for the terminal 30 numbers, they were all showing 28 volts on them, or it's 29 volts, something that it obviously wasn't what it wasn't at. And this is not a 48 volt vehicle. I checked quick. I'm like, is this one of the 48s? I don't think you'd end up seeing it that way anyways, but I'm just like, is there something going on there? No, this is a 12 volt vehicle with a battery that's more on the dead side of things anyways. And so I don't know if that's a scan tool thing. I'm not sure, but that seems odd. And terminal 50 not changing. All the rest of my inputs look good. Those terminal 30 voltage numbers were the only thing that I saw in the data PIDs of the BDC that seemed off. Again, no codes, nothing indicating there's a problem anywhere. And I'm taking it with a grain of salt. I'm sure many of you have the same thing. When you see a data PID that's off, you should be thinking, especially if you're using aftermarket scan tools, is this a scan tool thing or is this an actual problem? Especially if it's a number that you know can't exist on a particular circuit, right? When it says 29 volts, I'm pretty sure there's not going to be 29 volts on any of those circuits. Weird stuff can happen. If you ever worked on old Ford transmission, circuits connected to the transmission of an older Ford, you could actually see higher than 12 volts on those circuits. If the solenoids were pulsing, there'd actually be a feedback. It would happen when a fuse would blow in the underhood fuse box, and then you're checking voltages on the fuses, and one of them's like, 30 some volts on one side of the fuse. And you're like, how is that possible? And it's solenoids building a magnetic field and collapsing, and you could see that voltage. Really obscure thing, but maybe somebody else out there has seen it, because I know I've seen that more than once. Anyways, where I'm going with this is that's very unlikely that that's what's going on in this thing. Probably more likely it's a scan tool thing, but I'm going to keep that in mind as I go. And things are kind of leading me towards the body domain controller. Now, this sits in the right kick panel on the front side, where the passenger would have their feet just to the right of that, behind a panel, kind of behind the carpet a little bit. It's tucked up under there. Now, I know modules in that location on BMWs and many other cars. Of course, this has a sunroof. Water damage is very common. And so at this point, I decided, before I really did any other digging or any other testing, I'm going to access this thing. I'm going to check powers and grounds to it, because it's fairly straightforward to do that. Make sure I'm not missing anything. I was thinking maybe there's a missing ground or a poor ground or something, and it's causing this voltage reading. Again, maybe that's not a problem. I don't want to go too crazy, but I have a feeling I'm going to be testing at this body domain controller anyways, regardless if I find a power or a ground issue, right? I could also test the output to the starter directly from there. I can test any other inputs. Not exactly sure what those are going to be yet because, again, all the inputs seem fine based on the scan tool, but I'm getting to that. I'm going to put eyes on it. Sometimes a visual inspection is the winner when you know what components you're dealing with. Take a look at them, inspect them visually, and you can jump ahead to the fix a lot of the time. So anyways, do that, pull a carpet back, pull a panel off, get to the BDC, and I'm going to start checking powers and grounds, which means I got to take connectors off. And I do that, and I start pulling connectors off of this thing. And like I said, with a visual inspection, sometimes you get lucky. And on connector 2B, which if you're looking at the body domain controller, you're facing it, it's the lower right connector on this BDC. This one is wet and like more wet than a connector should be. I'm like, oh, okay, maybe there's water leaking down on this thing. And I look over the module. I don't see anything coming down. I don't see any other liquid except for like inside of this connector on the bottom right, this 2B connector. And I wipe the liquid off with my finger and it's not water. It's something that's got a little bit more, it's a little bit more viscous, almost kind of sticky a little bit, not like grease or anything like that, but it's not water. It's got a different consistency. And I was thinking, well, so what would be in here? And now this is where I'm starting to think, okay, is this fluid coming not from the sunroof? Is it fluid coming in through the harness? So what I do is I take a look at all the other connectors, and there's like 9 connectors on this BDC. All the rest of them are dry, except for this one, 2B. And again, it's got this kind of almost slimy fluid on it. And I look and I'm like, okay, it's on the connector. Is it in the BDC as well? And I look, and in that connector, you can definitely see fluid that's pooled up in the corner of it. So now I'm like, okay, well, I'm definitely onto something. I don't know for sure what this is yet, but that shouldn't be there. And it's probably inside of this module too, most likely. So I'm right there. I'm going to yank this thing out and I'm going to take the cover off. I'm going to inspect the inside of the module. I'm going to look at the board. I do that often when I get to a component and I'm like, okay, I need to look and see the board. You can find your solution so often when you've gotten to that point, right? You've got things pointing to that control module. Again, take it apart if it's doable. If it's all sealed up, silicone together, a little tougher and less likely to have corrosion inside, but this one's not. Like, you can see through the holes in the plastic casing and see the control board. So obviously fluid can get in. It's not meant to be in a position where it's exposed to fluid. So pull it out, pull it apart, a few screws, a couple clips, take it apart. It has definitely been wet inside from whatever this fluid is. You can see it. It's pooled up kind of in the corner. The board has remnants and is actually still wet from whatever this fluid is. But now I got to figure out what this fluid is. Okay, so I'm pretty sure BDC is going to be the issue here. I can do some verification, but this is not a good sign for it. And I can see a little bit of corrosion on the board too. But let's look at this connector and see what's actually on these circuits. Now, this does happen to be the connector that has the output wire for the starter. It's pin 1, it's black wire, goes right to the starter. Okay, well, what else is on this connector? And I see on pin, let's see, what pin was that? Pin 24 was the washer pump for the headlight system. And I'm like, well, maybe it's washer fluid actually wicking back into this. But I'm looking through the rest of the pins to see if there's anything else. And I see pin 10. And the reason I kept looking is I'm like, I really don't feel like this is washer fluid. I don't feel like it's water. It definitely could be coolant though. And pin 10 is the coolant level sensor. And that's in the reservoir. It's actually part of the reservoir right front under the engine. And so I'm like, oh, this is definitely coolant. Like, once I saw that, I'm feeling it. I'm like, yeah, that's what this is. This is antifreeze inside of the body domain controller, inside the vehicle, right? This coolant reservoir and sensor is on the left front under the hood. I don't know if I said left or right before, but it's the left front under the hood, the reservoir, the sensor, and the body domain controller is right front, passenger foot, behind a panel over there. So this fluid had wicked through, made it all the way through the harness and then into the body domain controller. Now, we've seen fluid wick into modules, various other things, right? Oil is very common to go into control modules, various cars. And I've seen coolant, Chevy Cruises, very common to see that engine control module. And that's usually where you see the stuff like coolant and oil is going into the engine control module. This one's a little different. It's body control module, which is under the dash. Very interesting. But I went to the coolant level sensor, went to the plug, and as I'm like pulling the plug out, I can see coolant dripping out. I'm like, oh, okay, I think we found it. So the level sensor is going to have to be replaced. Again, part of the reservoir. We're going to have to clean out the connector and the harness as much as we can, but you can only do so much when there's coolant like literally inside of the insulation. So the proper fix there is to cut the wire close to the module, solder it, and then seal it up properly so that no more fluid can wick into the new module. And that's the second part of this. So talk to the customer, hey, you're going to need a body domain controller, coolant level sensor, the cleaning, the repair to the wire, all that stuff. But of course, a new body domain controller is like $1,400-$1,500 cost at the dealer. I don't know exactly what it was, but it was quite a bit. It is a 2018 BMW. So, I mean, like, that's not that crazy. But of course, you know, we got to program the whole car with its stuff. We're going to do that. And, you know, they're looking at, you know, $2,000-$3,000 all said and done with everything, to get this thing out the door and running. And so they talk to their customer and they come back to us, and I'm not totally surprised that they did this. We're like, can you do a used one? And I said, I don't know. Now, I've cloned a few FEMs and BDCs in BMWs before, doing used ones, but they were older models. And this is actually a BDC2. It's a newer version of it, and I have not done one of these before. So I'm like, well, let me look into it. And it's mostly curiosity for me because I want to know, can I do a used one on one of these? Can I clone that over? And turns out I had part of the tooling necessary to do this. There might be other options out there, but ACDP actually has a module for this. Now, I had I think it's module 3, which is the BDC cloning kit. And it actually hooks up, like the connection points are similar, but it doesn't read this particular module because that is for the older versions. But they have module 38, which ACDP, if you're not familiar, you get the actual tool that hooks up to a tablet or a phone, and you can do the programming there and can do key stuff. But for the actual connection and the license of doing particular modules, you buy them on a modular basis, meaning that, hey, I do a bunch of old BMW CAS modules, I'll buy the CAS module. Or, hey, I do these MSV90s in these BMWs, I'll buy this module. But I don't do body control modules in Jaguars ever. Okay, well, don't buy the Jaguar body control module for that. And I kind of like that, you know, where you can buy the whole kit and caboodle and get everything all at once, but you don't have to. You can buy stuff as you need it and as you see it, because odds are, I mean, just like a lot of tools, you're going to buy something that sits around and never gets used. This allows you to order what you know you're going to use, or, you know, at least expect to use. And in this case, hey, I got a car. I haven't bought this new module to do it. I'll give it a try. So we talked to him. Okay, let's source one. Let's match the part numbers exactly. Okay. And then I'll get this module for ACDP. No guarantees, but you know, if it works, it's X price, and it's a little bit cheaper than buying a new one and doing that whole thing. We'll give it a try. So I ordered it, And turns out it did actually work. It did the trick. And it took a little screwing around. It wasn't exactly straightforward. They do have some stuff on their website, and the tooling does have some instructions with it. But I had to play around a little bit to make this work. The one hurdle that I kind of had to play around with until I got past it was the fact that the used body domain controller that I got did not have a key with it. Now, luckily, I had the key for the car for the original, and I think that allowed me to do this. Had I not had that, I think additional tooling or licensing would have been necessary. So just putting that out there, if it's like an all keys lost situation, that makes things a little bit trickier. Not that it can't be done, but I think it would require, there's like an extra $200 license to do the all keys lost version of this. But I was able to straight up 1-for-1 clone this thing with ACDP, plug it back in the car, came to life, started up, 0 codes, ready to go. Actually, it's still at the shop. We're waiting for the reservoir to show up, but we did the rest of the repair, getting it ready to go. My guys helped me get it all back together and stuff, but a pretty interesting one, and I wanted to share that on the show, both, with the problem that I found, interesting enough, but then also that, hey, there's solutions out there for making used control modules work. Now, do we have to in that case? Could you make the argument that, hey, this car should probably get a new part? It's new enough? Sure. But, who am I to say what people want to do with their money? And I like to know that I am actually able to do something. So maybe those BDCs become discontinued someday, or the price just keeps going up for whatever reason. I don't know. I like to know that I can offer an option to my customer, or I can provide a solution where maybe there isn't one otherwise. And so now I know I have a tool that's capable of doing this, and I know approximately what it takes to do it as far as time and effort, so I can charge appropriately. And yeah, I thought it was pretty interesting. So that's where I'm going to wrap this one up. Thank you so much for listening. Always appreciate it, all the feedback. Apologize if I don't get back to everybody right away. I do try to eventually, but yeah, I'm a busy guy. I got a lot of stuff going on. So anyways, thank you so much. With that all out of the way, let's get out there, start fixing the world one car at a time.